Welcome back to this week's edition of Estate Planning and Asset Protection Insights. Today I have with us Victoria Puchalski, who's a certified behavioral analyst. And I'm excited for today's conversation because we work with a lot of families in estate planning, with whether it's a special needs trust, supplemental needs trust, helping families maintain any government benefits that they might have access to. And so that ties in really nicely to today's conversation. So maybe I'll turn it over to you, Victoria. Give us a little bit of your background, who you are, and then I'm sure we're going to get into some great conversation.
Thank you so much. So like you said, my name is Victoria Puchalski. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I've been working in the field for about 10, 12 years now. Started off as a technician working one-on-one with kids who are on the spectrum. And then 4 years ago, I was certified as a behavior analyst. So now I oversee all of the programming and work with families directly as a behavior analyst. And I oversee the programming that what my job used to be as a one-to-one therapist would implement with each family member and each child. So I currently am a clinical director. So I oversee a group of BCBAs, which is an acronym for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. And I currently, help clients and parents get started into services.
Great. And so just for everyone who's watching this, and you might be watching this on YouTube later or whatever the case may be, her contact information is scrolling along the bottom there. So you'll see it. If you ever wanted to get in touch with her, you can easily access her through the phone number listed below. At the end, I will make her give all of her contact information. But let's just dive a little bit more into that. And I loved how you started using some acronyms and stuff, like to the layperson, like how can, if I have, it sounds like you deal a lot with children. If I have a child who's on the spectrum or someone who might be worthwhile to work with you, like what does that look like? How do we even start that process?
So the start of the process is always that diagnosis. So you want to grab that diagnosis. That's how you're going to be able to get insurance to pay for services.
That's great to know.
Yes. So and unfortunately, the only diagnosis that insurance does pay for is autism. So you want to have that diagnosis. Once you receive that diagnosis, then from there you would reach out to an ABA provider, which is applied behavior analysis. And that's the behavioral psychology that is used by behavior analysts when working with the autistic population. So what's important after that, you would reach out to a provider, you would provide all of your child's diagnosis, you'd provide your insurance information, and you'd fill out some intake paperwork as well. And from there, you'll have an initial assessment completed. That initial assessment will be completed by a BCBA. They will come into your home or you'll come to the clinic. Some companies may do it virtually, just kind of depends on who you're working with. And from there, what that will look like is we will kind of do like an interview form. We'll get a background information on that child, and services are approved up to the age of 21. So even if it's a teenager or a young adult, always want parents to keep that in mind, that it's never too late for services if you have someone who is older and has never received services. We'll kind of get an idea of what your child needs as well as what your goals for services as well are. Then from there, we'll directly assess the child, see where their skills are, what skill deficits they have, try to figure out if there's any problem behaviors like excessive tantrums, physical aggression, property destruction, things like that, and try to figure out the reason why those behaviors occur in order to write a behavior intervention plan. Once you get that initial assessment completed, then from there, we wait for, typically companies will wait for an authorization to come through from the insurance company. And then you'll have a one-to-one therapist that either works with your child at a clinic, in the home, community settings. Sometimes they'll do community outings like at grocery stores if that's an issue. Maybe they are engaged in after school sports and they have a really hard time with socialization. Those are things we can work with as well. And with that one-to-one therapist, it could be anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 hours a week that might be working one-to-one with your child. And then you'll have a BCBA that will be assigned to your case that will manage all of the programs, will conduct parent training. So, meetings with the parents or family, anyone who is a caretaker that would be able to, that would want to be involved and engaged and learn anything or any interventions that are used. That would be done with your BCBA. And then the BCBA would provide support to the person one-on-one that's providing one-on-one services at a certain percentage of those hours. So you'll see that usually anywhere between 10 and 20%. So let's say your child's receiving 20 hours of services, you're going to see that that BCBA with your child anywhere between 2 and 4 hours of services with that one-to-one therapist.
Okay, so backing up a little bit. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and maybe this is how I understand it. So maybe you might be working with your primary care physician, and you might get a referral. Is that how it works? And
yes.
And so now I know that it's covered under insurance, which is great. And then an initial assessment will determine the amount of, well, like what the plan might be to help with what needs to be helped with. Now, correct. I know a lot of schools have programs also. So are you coordinating it all with schools? And then I got a follow-up question to that.
No.
So many questions here. Are you working in conjunction with the schools, or what does that look like?
So that's a great question. So in the state of Michigan, we're not, if you have a child that is school age, so 6 years old or older, we are not supposed to be providing services during the school day. So for those school age kids, typically you're going to see after school hours or weekend hours if you have a company. So, but brought up a really great point, because what's super important for that BCBA to do is called coordination of care. So we should be discussing, with the parent's permission, we should be discussing services that are being provided with any outside services. So any speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and any teachers that are providing services to this child, we should also be coordinating with to make sure we're all on the same page. What struggles are we having? What interventions have you used in the past that we can help with? For speech, super important. How are you teaching this kid to communicate? How can we do the same exact thing during services as well?
Okay, great. And so my next question goes to, like, what does working with a patient look like these days? I mean, virtual, in person, we got all these things since COVID, right? So like, what does that look like?
So very rare are you going to see virtual one-to-one staff. So you might see my position be virtual. In Michigan, most of the board certified behavior analysts are being in person as well. So an initial assessment virtual, typically what that looks like is kind of like what we're doing. It'll be a conversation between you and the parent. And then the parent will bring the child in, and the BCBA does kind of use the parent a little bit just to kind of help, like, let me know if he selected a correct response. Let me know if he or she, is kind of looking at my screen. If it's in person, then it's obviously I'm going to be working directly with the child after I interview the parents. For services, direct services, it's very rare you're going to have telehealth. Those are going to be more so for your clients or your kids that are older, that really only need to work on social skills. We're trying to work on things like social emotional learning, things where it's more just, we're not physically, they're not the little ones. So we're not working virtually with a 2 or a 3-year-old. That's always going to be in person. So what that looks like for them is we're going to come into the home, what a day looks like in the life of an ABA therapist is you're providing services, you're working on skills. So let's say we have different assessment tools that we use that are looking at what a kiddo without any type of diagnoses should be doing at certain ages. So we look at that skill assessment. So whether that be labeling items. So if I ask you to tell me, what's behind me, you're able to tell me that it's glass, or, there's a door behind me, I'm sitting in a chair, things like that. So we would be working, with kids, we'll be working more in the natural environment. We'd use their toys. So if they're playing with a barn, we would have them identify the cow that they're playing with. We would teach them play skills. If they're older and more school ready, we'd be sitting at the table, maybe using flashcards, things like that. But what's really important for parents to understand is that, they hear 20 hours, and that's a lot of time that you're working directly with the client. So what's important to understand is we're not just working at a table. We're taking breaks. We're teaching them some, coping skills. If we get really frustrated when we don't get our way, but we have a hard no, unfortunately, we can't go get ice cream. It's not an option today. We need to learn how to cope with understanding and hearing no.
I can't even cope with that. That's not fair. That's not fair. You can't tell me no ice cream today.
That's like some of the things we do. We work a lot on play skills. We give kids break in between. We're really not, sometimes parents will say like, well, all they're doing is playing with our kid. And it's really important to understand that more work is truly done while we're playing with the kids and while we're sitting at the table.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, I mean, clearly, I love everything you're saying. You know what you're talking about. How does someone work with you? Because, like, we have, people are going to see this all over the country, all over the state of Michigan. Like, I want Victoria. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in working with me or touching base with me, the phone number below, 248-765-3537. Please don't hesitate to give me a phone call. I would love to be working with, you and your family, whoever that is. I have worked with all types of kiddos all over the spectrum as well as ages. I truly do have experience from 18 months all the way to 21 years of age. And those 21 years of age, I've worked with kids who are able to have a conversation just like this. And I've worked with kids who have no functional communication, no way to communicate their wants and needs, can't get dressed. And, we know that mom and dad might be, or the caregiver was a grandma. We know that there's a very real possibility this kiddo is going to end up in a group home. So what skills, daily living skills, do we need to teach this child in order for them to be as independent as possible? So I always tell families that, like, it doesn't matter how old your child is. It doesn't matter where they're at on their functioning level. Don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions, because you can always make the decision after you make those phone calls that ABA just might not work for you and your family.
Gotcha. And so, to work with you, I mean, do you have any geographical restrictions? Like how far?
Yeah. So right now, Macomb and Oakland County. So anywhere throughout Macomb and Oakland County are those geographical restrictions right at this point in time. So in the event that you are outside of Macomb and Oakland County, please don't hesitate to still reach out, because I can always point you into the direction of where to go, because it can be very overwhelming once you get that diagnosis. It's a very overwhelming experience for a lot of families. So I would love to help direct families in the way, or just kind of explain to them exactly what services look like, how to get into services, and how to kind of pick and choose which company to go to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. Just like the more that we do what we do and love to do, families reach out to us all the time. And even if it's something that's more state specific for another state, like we have an entire network of professionals that we know and trust and can refer to make sure that you're in good hands. And sometimes it's just really getting you going in the right direction, just kind of like what you were saying.
Absolutely. And I have worked before in different states virtually. So, just like you said, if there's anyone who is in, another state, I would still love to help you out and just kind of point you in the right and correct direction in order to help you receive services, just because, it can just putting ABA services in your area in Google can still be very overwhelming to figure out what your next steps are from there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it was incredible having you on today. I mean, we all know if you have kids, they're your everything. I mean, I've got 3 daughters, and I'd do anything for them. And it's just been awesome to have you on to talk about everything that you do. Why don't you give everyone your contact information one more time? And again, it's scrolling at the bottom, so if you need it there, and we'll also put it in the video contents. But go ahead and give your information one more time.
Of course. So thank you for having me on. I enjoyed being able to kind of talk about the autistic population, but also how to get services for them. So if you are looking for ABA services, you newly got a diagnosis, or you're just simply not happy where you're at and looking for services throughout the Macomb and Oakland County areas, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at 248-765-3537.
Okay, thank you again, Victoria. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time on Estate Planning Assets Protection Insights. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.